long ball number 3 on Friday, as we're wont to do, the Fab Four games of the weekend here in North America, where we talk about what games might be worth some attention and carving out some of your weekend for a little bit of a different weekend ahead of us with the international break. So there's a couple different games in the mix here, but this is obviously a group conversation, and the fourth pick of the Fab Four goes to the Chat and the MK Ultras. So get your suggestions in for the chat pick for the Fab Four this weekend. But Jason, let me give you the opportunity to pick numero uno for this weekend's Fab Four.
I will take the U.S. men's national team game in Harrison, New Jersey against South Korea. I will take that game. You know, I think that general excitement around the U.S. men's national team is low. Like confidence
Really
is low, pretty low right now. You know, this group does not generate a ton of enthusiasm for various reasons, whether it be none of the key players seem to have contributed enough for this team to have a bunch of success under Mauricio Pochettino. Now he is starting to look, you know, he's looking under couch cushions for players like, oh, there's a Sean Zawatsky. Let's grab him and see what he can do. Like, I didn't even know he was down there. And that does not have people thrilled, right? That we saw the reaction to Christian Roldan addition to the roster. Lots of people not on board with that.
Tell us about what people had to say about that addition.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess, you know, I don't want to paint with a broad brush or say that every American soccer fan is the same. There are U.S. men's national team fans who are like, yeah, that's great. Christian Roldan deserves it based on how good he's been in Major League Soccer. Just helped Seattle win that Leagues Cup. He was excellent in that game, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of people are like that. And people are also rationally thinking, well, he's fairly close. He doesn't have to travel across the Atlantic Ocean. You know, there's a pause here in the MLS moment. I don't know. There lots of people are like, okay, it just kind of makes sense that you would bring this guy in. But there are other people who think this is MLS DEI, Rob. That is a phrase I've seen on social media. That is a wild thing to bring. That I think you are. Yeah, you are extremely messy if you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna use the phrase the acronym DEI to talk about MLS and MLS players making the national team. So that's one of the vibes around it, Rob. I do think there's an opportunity here to build some excitement. It's going to be tough, you know. South Korea is a pretty decent team. We know they've got talent. They also are kind of trying to restart their situation. You know, they've got some players in Europe, but I don't think that anybody thinks of South Korea as like dripping with talent. So there's something there. I have no idea what the lineup is going to look like. Thank you, Andy, for being pedantic. It's an initialism, not an acronym. That is true. Thank you, Andy. He's talking about DEI. I don't have any idea what the lineup's going to look like.
Yeah,
and that kind of makes it a little bit more intriguing for me.
Yeah, I didn't catch the Best Soccer Show this week. I believe you guys tried to predict the lineup on that. Did you try to predict the lineup on that show?
We did. Jared went with the 3-5-2, which, you know, if you look at the roster, it kind of makes sense. You don't really have traditional fullbacks, at least not ones you trust. Like you feel like you have to get Dest on the field. You feel like you have to get, well, maybe you don't have to get Arvston on the field, but I think it's pretty clear that Pochettino likes Max Arvston a lot. And if you're not asking Max Arvston to defend, he's a better fit. So do you have the center backs to make a 3-back system work? And then what does it look like ahead of that? I mean, is Balogun the guy or Sargent the guy because he's more of a back-to-goal player with Pulisic playing off him? Those are the things. I just because it's hard for me to necessarily well, it's not that it's hard to imagine. I just don't know. I think my default is he'll probably play a 4-3-3, and maybe it will play like a 3-5-2 in possession. But if he does that, you know, is it Dest and Arvston, or are you really losing a lot defensively?
With the pool of players available, I feel like this game or this window could be us looking back in a year and be like, remember this team? Who was that guy? It's a real mishmash of players, and probably one of the trickier rosters or squads to predict the 11. But moving on to the second pick of the weekend, I'm going to stay close to home. Detroit City FC versus Orange County. Both teams in the lower places of the playoff hunt in their respective conferences. So DCFC, there's been some changes going on there. They have dismissed their sporting director and one of their other main front office staff, and there's been a little bit of turbulence there, and they're on the cusp of the lower parts of the USL Championship. So we'll see how DCFC does against Orange County this weekend in the USL Championship. And on Friday, we like to bring in producer Jenny to chip in with her pick. And then before she goes, chat, throw in your Fab Four pick to be considered for the fourth pick in here. But go ahead, Jenny. What's the third selection for this weekend?
I'm kind of thinking along the same lines as you in the USL Championship playoff race. And I'm going to go with our friends at New Mexico United visiting San Antonio FC this weekend, 8:30 on Saturday. The entire USL Western Conference is a mess. New Mexico in 9th place right now on 27 points is just 5 points back of El Paso in 3rd with 32 and only 3 points back of San Antonio, who they're playing against this week. Both teams really need these points. Both teams are a lot of fun to watch. So I'd say check this one out, 8:30 on Saturday, as the USL really enters the business end of the season, and both conferences, but more so the West, are a real mess when you get into that kind of mid-table range fighting for those back-end playoff spots.
So USL action getting to the business end, and with the international break, makes sense to fill up our Fab Four with some USL games. Thank you, Jenny. And I think it speaks to the international weekend. Not a lot of suggestions from the MK Ultras. Not too many in the chat, but we have one at least 4 NWSL games on national television. Looking forward to Bay versus KC, says Andy. That's a good suggestion for on national television. That's some good visibility for the women's game here in the United States. And we're going to talk about NWSL and the salary cap later on. So that's a good shout in the Discord channel, which you can get access to becoming a member. North Mississippi Soccer says in the USL, he would look at USL League One, Omaha versus Texoma. And so that's a good shout. And then go USA as well. So should we go with Andy's suggestion for the fourth pick of the group? Bay versus KC in the NWSL.
We'll make that the official pick, but I do want to point out Washington-Seattle is a pretty nice game, and that's on Sunday at Audi Field, so look out for that one as well.
So thank you for that. That is the Fab Four: USA, Korea, DCFC versus Orange County, San Antonio versus New Mexico, and what did you say for the fourth?
We'll go with Bay FC and Kansas City from Andy's suggestion.
All right, thank you, guys. That wraps up our long balls, and before we get to our guest, I got to remind you guys, next weekend, we are going to be live on location in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Meow Wolf Night. Myself, Jason Davis, the owner of the club, representatives from Meow Wolf, and all the wonderful faces and costumes and all that. We are going to see that. We're going to present that out live. I think we're going to be on location. We'll do our show on Friday from out there. And then we will have a special presentation. We're going to say it's not going to be in the morning, so it's going to be a morning kick around at night on next Saturday, September 13th, morning kick around out at Meow Wolf Night. Can't wait to see and meet all the soccer people out in Albuquerque, New Mexico next weekend. Great stuff. Very excited for that big moment for morning kick around. All right.